Chapter 1823 Asgard and the Eight Tribes. As information had long been collected by mechanical civilization, so the demon god knew how to fight the first time he faced him. Saladin did feel his body tremble. If the body that had been transformed from shadows continued to turn into a two-dimensional shadow, he would face the risk of being unable to recover before he could think of a countermeasure. A powerful red energy cannon spewed from the blade on the demon god G's left hand, transforming into a beam of light that pierced the space between the two and instantly reached Saladin. Phantom form. Saladin's body responded extremely quickly. As the leader of the assassins, his fighting style emphasized killing speed, and stealth were his greatest advantages. He retreated at great speed, and instead of turning into a shadow, his body suddenly expanded. The huge black cloak rustled in the air like a black cloud rapidly bearing in the wind. The huge black cloud took shape in midair, and its expansion became larger and larger until it turned into a huge dark cloud with a diameter of more than 10 km. The dark cloud was as black as ink, revealing Saladin's face. He opened his mouth wide, and a dark energy wave condensed in his mouth before blasting from the sky towards Demon God G. Demon God G opened his own defensive force field to withstand the attack of this power, and the blade on his right hand immediately launched a counterattack. At this moment, dozens of shade demon warriors were closing in on him at breakneck speed. Demon God G's pupils constricted, but his attention had already been drawn to the huge cloud in the sky. Saladin's attack arrived at the same time. The shadow demon warriors formed a circle and exploded after getting close enough to him. One after another, black light surged, completely engulfing the space where Demon God G was. Saladin's attack also arrived in front of Demon God G at the same time, but just a split second later, a huge pillar of red light shot up into the sky, shattering all the incoming black energy. Demon God G looked up at the huge black cloud in the sky, and with his huge blade in hand, he instantly soared into the black cloud. "I don't know whether to call you brave or stupid. How dare you come to my domain?" Saladin's voice resounded like thunder after the Demon God G charged into the black cloud. There was a flash of black thunder-like energy all around him, looming around him, and gradually forming a closed cage. Energy level judgment complete. The source of the Demon God G had completed its analysis of Saladin's power. Energy output multiplier increased to 300%. A red energy crystal embedded in his mechanical arm suddenly burst into flames, emitting a blinding light that pierced the thick black clouds and shot in all directions. The unknown Federation region, a mutant beast army of Europe Alliance, appeared here, their mission objective being to wipe out the Mechanical Legion operating here, led by the Demon Godron. Today's Europa Alliance is already very different from the past. With the end of the world approaching, a large number of former Alliance countries have broken away from the Europa Alliance due to internal chaos. However, there are still 13 countries in it, but the real power is in the hands of the powerful mutant organization Asgard, led by France and Prussia. For this battle, they have even sent more than half of their powerful mutants here. Among all the mutant troops, their strength definitely ranks among the best. Strictly speaking, they are even comparable to Zhang's team from the Hu Kingdom and Fan's mutant team. Perhaps they are second only to the Knights of the Round Table, who have gained huge benefits from completing a copy of an ancient civilization at the bottom of the sea independently. After all, both France and Prussia are individually among the world's top powers. The war has already begun. The three leaders standing on top of a ruin look at their enemies before them with different expressions. As leaders, they need to deal with the other party's strongest combatant, Demon Godron, and those super large mechanical life forms with extremely strong destructive capabilities. Standing at the front of the team is a dazzling and extremely dazzling being. He is clad in silver armor, and beneath him rides an 8Y Pegasus, also fully armored with blazing fire on its hooves. His luxurious combat uniform is made using the top technology of the Europa Alliance. In his right hand, he holds a long silver spear from which streams of lightning snake like silver snakes, exuding a terrifying aura. If you look closely, you will see that the light and shadow and space around him are all distorted due to that powerful force. That is why the other two people next to him have tacitly kept a distance from him. The other two people are a young girl who is only about 1.6 m tall, with messy purple long hair and carrying a huge silver cross on her shoulders. However, her cross is inlaid with a battle axe at one end, which looks Very much like an ancient weapon called a bundle of rods, the other was an elegant and enchanting woman. She was dressed in red, and even her long hair, which fell to her hips, was scarlet. A strong bloody smell surrounded her, and anyone within 50 m of her would be infected by the smell of blood and choose to stay away. These three were the three giants of Asgard: Odin, god of war; Loki, god of trickery; and Hel, goddess of death. On the far side of the three, the demon god Ron had already been waiting. This was a demon god in a completely UNC conventional appearance. He had 6 spider-like legs, a stout and bloated upper body, and in his left hand he held a huge hand cannon, while in his right hand was a huge weapon in the shape of a sword. Odin looked at the enemy in front of him and suddenly raised the silver spear in his hand. The eternal spear Gungar was aimed at the direction where the demon god Ron was located and hurled directly at it. At this moment, it seemed as if time had suddenly come to a standstill. The movement of all living and non-living things on the battlefield came to a halt, and only the eternal spear continued to approach the demon god Ron at a constant speed. The target locked in by the eternal spear will definitely be pierced through. This is a weapon of the law of cause and effect from which there is no escape. It will eventually follow an eternal trajectory wherever its target is, never ceasing. It may seem like time has come to a standstill, but that is only because it is moving so fast, and it is heading straight for the chest of the demon god Ron in an unstoppable manner. Boom! The silver lightning spear collided with the invisible defensive force field, causing a violent explosion that spread in all directions like a silver snake darting through the sky. Under the influence of the electric current, all the mechanical life forms around them fell into a state of chaos and shut down. Odin's spear of eternity could not be avoided, and he had to rely on his own strength to block it. This created an opportunity for Loki and Hela. Loki, carrying the battle axe that was larger than her body, leapt from a high place and ran towards the area where the giant mechanical life form was located. She was incredibly fast, and her body, with no battle suit to hide it, revealed 2 small white legs as she ran across the ground. Boom, boom, boom! The mechanical life form's laser cannons formed a large net in front of her, closing in on her. But by this point in the battle, the various mutant forces had already become familiar with the fighting styles of these regular mechanical life forms and had found effective strategies to deal with them. Mutants with the enhancement system who can fight up close are the best choice for defeating them. The next best option is to deal with the energy fields formed by their special techniques. A means of counteracting the reaction force field has been developed so that their defenses are no longer so strong. Loki Barrett Thomas, a female warrior from Prussia, a crazy woman who is extremely warlike. Her favorite thing is to disassemble these seemingly powerful but actually slow war machines with her bare hands. The huge crucifix battle axe in her hand was swung by her seemingly thin but actually muscular arms, blocking the laser cannons of the super large mechanical life forms, and she even directly sent the attacks back. The powerful impact did not make her body flinch in the slightest, and soon she was braving the barrage of laser cannons and approaching the super-large mechanical life forms. Clang. When fighting at close range, the super-large mechanical life forms found it difficult to deal with this powerful single mutant, but they also had their own means of protection, which was to open the doors and release countless small and medium-sized mechanical life forms from within. Those mechanical life forms fell from the huge mechanical life form like dumplings, forming a dense army around the huge mechanical life form, waiting to meet the enemy. Loki's face revealed a crazed smile as she allowed their laser weapons to shoot at her, but her clothes showed no signs of being damaged. It looked like an ordinary black sweatshirt, but in fact it was made of the finest materials and was more expensive than ordinary combat uniforms. Boom! She charged into the ranks of the Mechanical Legion like a hurricane, wielding a cross-shaped battle axe, knocking hundreds of mechanical life forms flying with just her physical impact. On the other side, as the bloody smell filled the air, a huge blood river suddenly opened up within the Mechanical Legion, gradually submerging their bodies. Death. Hela Louise Andre. She once had another title, Bloody Mary. The blood forcibly dragged those mechanical life forms in, and then white smoke continued to rise. Even the mass-produced machines created by the powerful technology of a mechanical civilization could not withstand the erosion of this highly corrosive liquid. Soon many of the internal parts of the machine were destroyed, and it was Completely reduced to a pile of scrap metal compared to Loki's simple and crude fighting style, Hela's fighting style is more suitable for group attacks. Her body slowly emerged from the blood river, and looking at the wreckage of the broken mechanical life forms, she touched the corner of her lips in some dissatisfaction. It's so sad, they're all just pieces of metal, and I can't absorb any blood. This did make her feel a little sad, because if she were facing an army of humans or other carbon-based life forms, she could rely on absorbing their blood to make herself immortal, and she could even turn them into her own zombie puppets. Unfortunately, her combat effectiveness was greatly reduced when faced with these guys. The source of the battlefield was naturally reserved for the leaders of both sides. Odin, god of war, armed with the eternal spear, and demon god Ron, separated by a distance of tens of kilometers, began a long and terrifying attack with the help of advanced electronic equipment. They were able to precisely obtain the location of the other party. For Odin, as long as he can observe the existence of the target, the eternal spear will eventually hit the other party the moment he strikes, unless the eternal spear is destroyed. As for the defender, the price of completely eliminating this power is several times higher. This is not a one-to-one offset. The models of the lower demon gods are almost indistinguishable, and their only differences in appearance. The upper four demon gods are more powerful bodies, while the 6 demon gods below, A, B, C, and D, do not have a significant difference in strength. Therefore, their abilities are all powerful, but singular. Once you understand this, you can win any battle against the human camp. After all, humans are carbon-based creatures and can use all kinds of tricks and schemes. The lower-ranking demon gods and mass-produced machines all fight according to set procedures, so it goes without saying that one will be more likely to reveal their weaknesses. Northern Federation territory. Appearing here are the mutant troops of the Brahma Alliance. They have a significant advantage in being here because the mutant troops from the Kingdom of Kermit, who were here first, have already been wiped out, so they are not facing the best conditioned mutant troops. This is why they chose to be here. Emperor Indra's time prelude can see the distant and blurry trajectory of the future, and it has selected the best opponent for him. Emperor Indra was very confident. He once considered himself the most powerful mutant in the world. After the Brahmin mutant army arrived in fans, it would surely sweep through other countries with a track record that would amaze the world. However, as he came into contact with mutant forces that he had not encountered in the past, an indescribable emotion began to well up in his heart: anxiety, shame, and anger. His heart did not want to admit that there were still many mutants in the world who were as powerful as him, if not even more powerful than him. Even though he was aware of this rationally, he did not want to admit it. But now the Brahma mutant army could indeed only be considered upper middle class among the major human powers and organizations. I will end this battle as quickly as possible to prove my strength, the strength of our Brahma. Emperor Indra said to himself as he set off. Even if the Kingdom of Kermit was weak, it had 2 Epsilon-level mutants who could at least somewhat drain the strength of the Mechanical Legion, so they arrived in this area just as they had expected. There had been a major battle here, and the remains of a large number of mechanical life forms and the bodies of the Kermit mutants were left behind. The smoke of battle was everywhere. Emperor Indra's eyes brightened, and the corners of his mouth turned up in a smile. He turned to the celestial beings behind him, and the Garuda tribe led by Gao Chong, and the Azure tribe led by Aura, and ordered use the fastest speed to flatten this place for me. Fortunately, the mechanical life forms here did not understand these words, otherwise they would definitely cast doubting glances at this group of humans. What kind of courage made them dare to say such words? Emperor Indra let out a roar, leapt high into the air with his bare feet, and revealed the Dharma of the 3 reincarnations. He held the Vishnu divine bow, drew back the bow string, and the sky rumbled with thunder. He released his power with the majesty of a god. As soon as the arrow was released, it instantly transformed into tens of thousands of arrows aimed at the mechanical life forms on the ground. The mechanical life forms' defensive fields had been targeted, and they were unable to effectively reduce the energy. So many of the mechanical life forms were directly pierced, and the golden arrows sank into their bodies, where they soon exploded violently. With one move, Emperor Indra eliminated thousands of mechanical life forms. Such a magnificent scene made the mutants of Brahma excitedly shout, "Oh ha, Emperor Indra is invincible." Only Ga Chong and Oro looked coldly, not sure what to make of Emperor Indra's Actions: he was too proud, having received countless praises and flattery in the 3 years since the end of the world. He was also a rare genius born with supernatural abilities and able to increase his ability index much faster than normal. But if a person's life goes too smoothly, it will be difficult for them to recover when they experience a setback, so much so that he was too eager to show off. Emperor Indra asked commander should not have been in such a hurry, at least not to show off his power by exposing himself to the enemy's view. Sure enough, startled by this power, demon god Gung appeared. He was a humanoid with 6 mechanical spider-leg arms growing from his back. Feeling the power of the human in the sky, he raised his right hand, and a dark launch hole appeared in the palm of his hand. The fighting style of mechanical life forms has always sought the simplest and most effective means with nothing to do with experimentation. Therefore, this move represents 100% of his power, not only him, but also the 4 oversized mechanical life forms on the battlefield as they began to charge their main guns at Emperor Indra in the sky. Bajura glanced at Shintong and said, "We should go, and we can't just stand by and watch Emperor Indra get surrounded." Emperor Indra was the main force, and although he really wanted to see Emperor Indra fail, if anything happened to him, right now they were afraid they would also have difficulty surviving, so they must go over and help him. Gao Chong nodded. Understood. He had never taken the initiative to voice his own suggestions during this operation because both Emperor Indra and Ashura were on their guard against him. However, Gao Chong performed very well. He was like a taciturn but useful mercenary who would do a good job according to the employer's requirements, and according to his strength, he was only the 3rd best in the team, so he just needed to follow the eldest brother and second eldest brother and do a good job. Aura took a step forward, his eyes blazing with anger. His muscular body suddenly erupted with a terrifying power, and the wind and clouds changed color along with his anger. Ow! He roared like a beast, and his skin quickly turned as black as charcoal. Even his entire face became pitch black with patches of marks attached to his body as red as blood, dressing him up like a ghost god. Aura, a mutant with enhancement ability, great heavenly mantra. When he is in a rage, he can transform into water-bearer and unleash the most ferocious power. Aura, armed with a trident, charged straight towards the battlefield, followed closely by Jie Chong and the others who began to join the battle. Emperor Indra was surrounded by light and suspended in the air. Demon god Gung and the attacks of the giant mechanical life forms were fierce. He lightly summoned his left hand, and his golden supernatural powers turned into liquid, condensing into a heavenly, exalted parasol. Once he had opened the parasol, it began to rotate at a constant speed, forming a golden energy barrier in front of him. Several powerful attacks arrived in an instant, crashing fiercely against the heavenly exalted parasol's defenses. Emperor's defensive layer quickly showed signs of cracking, and he hurriedly raised his conch shell, playing a loud howl as the conch shell sent out a sound that resounded through the heavens. An image of the sea appeared behind Emperor Indra, with wave after wave sweeping towards him. The waves blocked the attacks of demon god Gung. In a giant mechanical life form, the collision of the 2 forces sent Emperor Indra reeling back a very long distance. It was only at this point that Aura and Jie Chong and the others charged into the battlefield. Aura took the initiative to attack the giant mechanical life form, relieving a great deal of pressure on Emperor Indra. Emperor Indra let out a sigh of relief in his heart and looked at demon god Gung with a serious expression. In fact, during the last battle, he had discovered something. The 10 demon gods were different from all the other mechanical life forms because they were life forms. They had a tangible soul and self-awareness. As long as they were life forms, that was enough. When Emperor Indra first entered fans, he was truly at a loss as to what to do with those mass-produced machines. His ability is to trace and predict people or living things. However, this ability cannot be used on non-organic matter. But if the other party is an organic life form, his ability can be used. Emperor Indra looked at the demon god Gung below and could barely hold back the smile at the corner of his mouth. He raised the Vishnu divine bow in his hands and pulled the bow string taut in a magnificent gesture. Although this action was completely unnecessary from the perspective of releasing supernatural powers, he liked this exaggerated gesture because it was Commander Destroy. Whoosh! The golden arrow in his hands flew out of his hands, but it disappeared in an instant. The next moment it appeared behind demon god Gung had an early warning of crisis sounded in demon god Gung's mind, and his body felt the powerful and destructive force approaching his body. Since it was in the back, his body could not effectively block it, so he directly increased his body's performance to the maximum and moved towards the left. The golden arrow exploded behind his head just as a source began to perform massive calculations. It was as if a golden sun had risen above the earth, enveloping the entire spherical space. Chapter 1824 Rebellious Sun Demon God Gung was enveloped in Vishnu's arrow within striking distance. The attack happened so close that he was caught off guard. Although he did his best to dodge it, in the first instance his body still suffered heavy damage. The armor on his shoulders and neck shattered, and black residue fell to the ground. Emperor Indra had previously engaged demon god Jin in a brief battle, but in that battle Emperor Indra was unsure of the strength of these demon gods and treated them like mechanical life forms, so he did not use his time ability. Therefore, not much information was revealed. This move was not in the information database, and demon god Gung was caught off guard. His source was spinning rapidly, and Emperor Indra saw that the move had worked, and a confident smile appeared on his face. Just as I thought, he drew another bow and set an arrow aiming at the position of demon god Gung. Demon god Gung's body suddenly turned into A, and it charged towards Emperor inner position in a serpentine motion. He had just been in that area and hadn't moved, so he was attacked. So he wanted to try moving at high speed to avoid being targeted. At the same time, as long as Emperor Indra's attack missed, he would use the brief moment to close the distance and launch a counterattack. The demon god Gung moving at high speed was like a black after image to the human eye. He was a black constantly zigzagging through the air. However, once the golden sacred arrow was released from Emperor Indra's hand, it instantly disappeared from his field of vision. The next moment, the arrow appeared directly in front of the demon god Gung, who was moving at super high speed. The golden arrow was pointing at his brow, and the super high-speeded moving demon god Gung could not avoid being hit at this time. He couldn't believe that he was so fast and could still be targeted. Kaka, he was already too late to stop his high-speed body in the air and could only try his best to change the direction of movement and try to move his head away from the direction the arrow was pointing. In the blink of an eye, the golden sacred arrow exploded with terrifying energy. A huge golden sphere expanded in midair, completely enveloping demon god Gung. Emperor Indra's face showed signs of ecstasy, and his features even looked a little distorted and frightening. I told you my powers are invincible. Not everyone can resist my powers like chaos can. I and the great prophet spatial ability, one of the most supreme of all supernatural abilities, represents infinite change in and of itself, and is unpredictable and hard to gauge. It is also hard to defend against, and one can never be too careful. If Chong's second hand of time had not been superior to Emperor Indra's time mechanism in the life and death battle, Emperor Indra would not have lost so dismally in the battle, and Jangi would not have even killed him 6 times in a row. In the realm of the 7 treasure golden steps, 7 treasure golden steps, Emperor Indra's most powerful ability, it can only be used 7 times against any person or organic life form, representing his 7 chances. Anytime he gets the chance, as long as he can kill his enemy, he can make that outcome a reality, and if he fails, he can choose to return to the beginning of the battle at the moment of defeat, and everything that happened in the past becomes useless. Emperor Indra finally experienced a long-lost sense of exhilaration in the body of the demon god Gung, but the next moment a red beam of light shot out of the golden light directly towards the area where Emperor Indra was standing. The light was so sudden and fast that before Emperor Indra could come back from his joy, it had already arrived in front of him. The red beam contained an incredibly terrifying amount of energy, a powerful force that could obliterate him outright without any trial and error. Any weakness revealed would be exploited by the opponent with the most ruthless means to obliterate him. After withstanding the power of the golden holy arrow, demon god Gung also chose to directly overload and burst out energy, burning the red energy crystal to deliver a deadly blow. That terrifying energy was able to directly disintegrate the molecular structure of almost all matter. Emperor Indra only felt his back go cold. His abilities were operating at a frantic pace, with the 6 arms holding different magical implements. At this moment, he also broke through his own limits, ignoring what kind of devastation his body would suffer, and exploded with astonishing power. The married divine wheel world Rapidly at his fingertips the Dharmakon shell sounded the guardian, divine hammer. Shook the sky, and the heavenly exalted parasol rotated constantly, casting down a myriad light curtain. He used every means at his disposal to defend against the attack above the sky. Emperor Indra saw the broken face of demon god Gung. His body had been pierced by the golden sacred arrow in many places. The golden sacred arrow had shattered his body in many places, and even his head had almost been blown off. But at this moment he looked even more hideous and terrifying. The first level of the 7 treasure golden steps gradually faded away on the desolate battlefield. Smoke signals were rising in all directions. The radiation concentration here had now reached a terrifying level. Ordinary people could not approach at all, otherwise they would be killed directly by the powerful energy radiation filling the air, which would dissolve their cells and disintegrate their bodies. The earth was broken and cracked, and there were scorch marks everywhere. Emperor Indra stood on the earth with his legs wide apart, his body covered in wounds. Blood ran down his muscles and had gathered into a small puddle on the ground. He gasped for breath, his strength failing him, but a smile played at the corner of his mouth. The 7 treasure golden steps behind him had dimmed by 4 levels, but in the 5th realm of the cycle, he had managed to eliminate demon god Gung. Although the price was extremely heavy and he was almost killed, it was all worth it. In his right hand, he held an energy source no bigger than a fist, and in front of him the body of demon god Chong was already broken, its head smashed open. Looking at the trophy in front of him, Emperor Indra let out a loud, almost insane laugh. Ahahaha! 2 subordinates of the celestial beings came to Emperor Indra and immediately supported the somewhat weak Emperor Indra. Emperor, you have won this battle, will surely be recorded in the annals of Brahma, and all the people of Brahma will praise your great achievements. Emperor Indra rested his arms on their shoulders, and at this time his body was already somewhat unsteady. This battle was too difficult for him. He did not have the invincible defenses of Jangi, so when facing the overloaded attacks of demon god Gang, he was killed several times before finding a way to deal with it. Even so, he was now covered in wounds and unable to continue fighting. Emperor, let's go back first. Leave the remaining battlefield here to the Azure tribe and the Garuda tribe to deal with. One of his subordinates said. Emperor Our body leaned on them for support, and he was also extremely tired at this time. He lowered his head and said slowly, my mission has been accomplished. Demon god Gung has been slashed by me, and I will leave the rest to these 2. After all, they have to do something to prove their worth. The 2 subordinates immediately replied, yes. They first carried the remains of demon god Gung, then one of them placed his right hand on Emperor Indra body to heal his wounds. The other mutant immediately summoned a whirlwind to envelop the 3 of them, then soared into the air and sped off into the distance. Meanwhile, they conveyed Emperor Indra's words to Aura, and Emperor Indra. Fierce battles were still being waged on the battlefield. Although Emperor Indra had defeated demon god Gung, there were still many thorny issues to deal with in this huge battlefield. The mechanical life forms that have received combat orders will only follow the last orders they received after Commander XU was killed, that is to kill all humans. Their eyes gleam with a crimson light, and they will stop at nothing to kill all the enemies in front of them until the very second before their collective destruction. Even if the humans in front of them are killed, they will still go looking for creatures called humans and kill them all. All the machines were in a state of chaotic rampage, although they had studied mechanical life forms enough to fight them without being at a loss for the first time. They were still fighting very hard. Jiao Chong Kong and Ajura needed to face for super large mechanical life forms. If they weren't careful and got hit by their laser cannons, even a mutant of the level of Black Chariot would find it hard to withstand. Ajura frowned after Emperor Indra left. There were still a lot of mechanical life forms to deal with, but as a Black Chariot level enhanced mutant with a supernatural ability index of 26,000, he could take his time cleaning up the battlefield. Garuda, you come and assist me, help me clean up the surrounding stragglers, Aura ordered. Jie Chong Kong. Jie Chong Kong smiled and nodded. Yes, Aura Sama. Ajura brandished his trident and leapt hundreds of meters into the air, stabbing at the huge mechanical life form in front of him. It was a war tank-like mechanical life form with extremely sturdy armor. In the face of Azura's aggressive attack, its cannon mouth spewed out a powerful energy cannon. Aura roared and did not dodge, choosing to directly confront it. He aimed his trident at its cannon mouth and stabbed down the powerful energy cannon. Upon encountering the trident was like a raging flood meeting a mountain and was directly diverted, causing no damage to Aura at all. Aura landed against Its attack jumped onto its body and began to wreak havoc. The trident burst, with destructive power piercing the hard armor of the mechanical life form. There was an instant explosion of energy followed by a loud roar in the head of the chariot-like mechanical life form was directly slashed off. Chong Kong, accompanied by his subordinates Gung and Badu, was sweeping the mass-produced machines around. The golden sacred sword in his hand shone brightly, and dozens of machines directly exploded with each swing. Gung raised her slender palm and pointed at the air, and huge, translucent enchantments appeared, trapping the mechanical life forms. Then she opened her cherry lips and said, "Explode." The enchantments collapsed, and the power of the explosion instantly destroyed the mechanical life forms. Bado followed the two, shaking a few white dice in his hand with different symbols engraved on them. Dozens of mechanical life forms rushed at him, and Boda flicked his fingers, sending a white ghostly Fade DC soaring up into the air and flying above them. As Bot 2 pressed down with one hand, the dice suddenly grew larger, turning into the size of a small mountain before crashing down with a loud noise rumble. All the mechanical life forms were crushed under the D. After Emperor Indra left Aura and Chong Kong, and the others spent more than 2 hours completely cleaning up the battlefield. It wasn't that they were weak, but these mechanical life forms were just too tenacious. Unless they were completely destroyed, they would continue to fight. After this battle, the mutant beast army had lost many more. When they first arrived, there were a total of more than 100 elite mutants in the 3 major groups, and the weakest of them all had more than 8,000 points, but now only 20 or so of them remain. Aura wiped the blood from his forehead. He had also sustained some injuries in the battle, but for a Black Chariot level enhanced mutant, these injuries were not fatal. After this battle is over, we need to go back and rest for a while, Ajura said. He turned around. His burly body was covered in injuries, but it looked full of a wild beauty. Instead, Ajura looked up into the sky as he carried the golden sacred sword and stepped on the broken remains of mechanical life forms. Aura ordered in a deep voice to heaven, "Gather all the important materials around you. Don't leave any for the Franz." Chong Kong nodded, his face beaming with a smile. His eyes narrowed to slits. Suddenly, 2 fierce attacks pierced the sky with unparalleled murderous intent and struck Aura in the back. 2 powerful Azuras armed with sharp weapons launched an attack on their leader without warning. Aura had been on guard against Chong Kong the entire time, and he didn't trust this outsider. His attention was focused on the 3 of them, so at this moment, he didn't notice his subordinates. 2 mutants of Delta level actually slashed their weapons into his back. Aura's body shook. Their attack did not tear through Aura's defenses, but the sudden turn of events took him by surprise, and he did not understand why this was happening. And that was when Chong Kong struck. He suddenly raised his golden sacred sword in his hand and slashed towards Ajura at the speed of light. The golden sacred sword exploded with a powerful sword light, and the fierce energy swept towards the neck of the Aura. That power made the Azure's pupils contract violently, for he sensed the breath of death in a hurry. He suddenly erupted with a powerful force, directly sending the 2 Azuras behind him flying. Then he raised his trident and held it in front of himself. Boom! Chong Kong's sword light split in front of him, and the power was so strong that the unprepared Azura was sent flying. His legs plumbed 2 deep trenches in the ground. His heart was full of questions, not sure why his sub-orates had rebelled, and even less understanding of how Chong Kong dared to suddenly turn against him at this time. But he knew one thing: Chong Kong had always been hiding his strength. His anger was burning, and this guy really did harbor evil intentions, just as he had thought. Garuda Aura roared in anger, but Chong Kong smiled and struck again, attacking like a sudden storm, not giving Aura a chance to adjust his form. Aura fought against Chong Kong, and the more he fought, the more he became alarmed. His power was formidable, but he was unable to gain the slightest advantage in his exchanges with Chong Kong. On the contrary, Chong Kong was incredibly at ease in dealing with every attack he made. It was as if Chong Kong had already figured out all of his attack methods. Garuda, what the hell do you want? Aura roared in anger. Chong Kong's attacks did not stop, and he just looked at Jura with a smile. Isn't it obvious? I want to finish you off after you die. My position above will be vacant again. The 8 tribes Heavenly Dragon are led by 8 powerful Epsilons, and now Yaksha and Mahaga have been killed by Jangi. These 2 were among the stronger beings in the 8 tribes. With their deaths, there are not many people whose strength ranks above Chong Kong. This is still under the premise that he is Hiding his strength, in fact, at the foot of the Great Snow Mountain, he also obtained the origin of the Grand General of the Nash Kingdom as well as other spoils of war coupled with the ability of the meditation seal to perform reincarnation theory. He can continue to experiment and find the path that is most suitable for him to improve his strength. Gao Chong is a genius, a true genius, even though he was in a foreign land and was suppressed. He still relied on his own strength to become a powerful being with a supernatural ability index of 26,000 points. Azura gasped for breath, as he had just experienced a fierce battle and was not in perfect condition. In contrast, Chong had never used his full strength since arriving in fans. It was only after Emperor Indra left that he revealed his true strength. Azura's gaze swept over the mutants of the Azura clan, each of them with a vacant stare. Like puppets, aren't you curious about what happened to them? Chong said with a smile. Sorry, I quietly planted my puppet mark on them during the battle. Right now they are all just my puppets. Ora was shocked and angry. He clenched his trident in his hand and shouted angrily, Garuda, do you want to die for doing this? You can't hide your true self from Emperor Indra's eyes as a traitor from the kingdom. If you lose the protection of Brahma, you will definitely die. Chong shook his head. Traitor from the kingdom? No, you seem to have got it wrong. Rebellion is when you fail, and revolution is when you succeed, and Gao Chong have not yet failed. By the way, he slowly opened his eyes, his gaze deep and teasing. I spent 3 years in Brahma, and I have long since understood the capabilities of Emperor Indra, so I know exactly how to avoid his game. Right now, he doesn't have the energy to care about your life or death. Go with peace of mind. I will blame your death on mechanical civilization. After listening to Gao Chong's words, Aura's eyes turned red with anger. He knew that this guy was no ordinary person and that he might have come to Brahma with evil intentions, but he never imagined that Gao Chong would stoop so low. He pointed his trident at Gao Chong and roared angrily, Garuda, don't forget that it was Brahma that took you in when you were at your lowest and gave you the opportunity to rise. How can you do this to us? Gao Chong sneered at this. With my abilities at the time, no matter which force I went to, I would have been treated as a VIP. You only invited me because you saw my abilities. We were just trading interests. So what's the talk about kindness? Aura knew that no matter what, this day could not end well, so he roared and exploded with his terrified power. His ability code Aura represents the demon god of Brahma, and Aura is very much worthy of his name as his fighting style is simple and brutal. A top-level mutant of the enhancement system relies on his own formidable strength, and it is almost impossible to find an opponent who can match him in close combat. However, his enemy Gao Chong is an ability user of the trait system. What is the trait system? It refers to the possession of 2 or more ability attributes at the same time. For example, Jangi possesses the abilities of both time and space. Gao Chong's ability, the Heavenly Dancing Treasure, will has endless variations. He is also very good at close combat. Behind Gao Chong, the Heavenly Dancing Treasure will slowly emerged with a mysterious Sanskrit mantra spinning. Badu and Gung Man slowly retreated to the background, unable to intervene in this battle. However, in the current situation, Aura can no longer escape. Since they have decided to intervene, they've sealed off all his escape routes. What's more, he is already exhausted after the recent battle. As for trying to signal the outside world to inform them of the situation here, that's even more impossible. Before they started, they had already blocked information from the entire area. This incident is very easy to explain. Just say that mechanic civilization did it. Akola seal. Gao Chong formed the Akola seal with his left hand. As soon as the seal was formed, a heavy golden armor was magically conjured, covering his entire body as if it were real. He was dressed in golden armor, holding the sun will divine sword, and looked onping like a god. Azura's body was wrapped in a towering black aura. His water bearer form was his most ferocious stance, and the power he unleashed with was also limitless. He brandished a trident, and in an instant he traversed the distance between the two. The sonic boom caused by his pure physical body caused the drums of the puppet Azura, who had not had time to move away, to directly shatter, and blood poured out. Gao Chong smiled, but his gaze was serious and cold as he stared at the Azura that was attacking him. The Triton was about to pierce his face, but the rising sun sword was raised just in time to block the attack. Boom, a terrifying Energy erupted with the two people at its center fortunately gone, and Badu had already moved away, so they were not affected. However, seeing the aftermath of that terrifying power, Badu couldn't help but laugh. That was terrifying. Is this the power of the Epsilon class? Even the lowest level white chariots of the Epsilon class display a power that Delta level mutants cannot imagine. This is the difference in levels between the two. Guman's hands naturally hung at her sides, and she too wore a smile on her face, but she maintained a combat stance. She would strike the first blow should anything happen on the battlefield.